I didn't believe in ghosts, but I do believe in the footage on my phone from the future. Today, February 12, 2026, I watched my own reflection in this antique mirror commit a brutal murder. I have exactly 3 days until this horrifying vision becomes my reality. The mirror came into my life 2 years ago, in the spring of 2024. I'd found it at an estate sale in the decaying Victorian district of Portland, tucked away in a corner of a cluttered attic. The ornate frame had caught my eye first, tarnished silver with intricate scroll work that seemed to writhe in the dim light. The glass itself was remarkably clear despite its age, the kind of clarity that only genuine antique mirrors possessed before modern manufacturing standards homogenized everything. The elderly woman running the sale had given me an odd look when I'd carried it down the narrow stairs. "That's been in the family for generations," she'd said, her voice paper-thin. "Nobody wanted it." She hadn't elaborated, and I hadn't asked. I should have. For 2 years, the mirror hung in my hallway, unremarkable except for its beauty. I passed it dozens of times each day, catching glimpses of myself rushing to work, coming home exhausted, living the mundane existence of a 32-year-old architect in a city that barely noticed I existed. The mirror reflected everything exactly as it should, until yesterday. February 11th, 2026, started like any other morning. I was running late for a client meeting, straightening my tie in front of the mirror before grabbing my briefcase. That's when I noticed something wrong with my reflection. The tie was straight in the glass, but my hands were still fumbling with it in reality. My reflection was moving independently, half a second ahead of my actual movements. I froze. The reflection froze too, but not at the same instant. It was as if there was lag, like a video call with poor connection. I waved my hand experimentally. The reflection waved back, but the timing was off, creating a disorienting echo effect. My stomach twisted with unease. Then the reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering against my ribs. The reflection remained in the mirror, standing perfectly still now, watching me with an expression I'd never worn on my own face. Cold, calculating, empty. I turned away, told myself I was exhausted, that I'd imagined the whole thing. But when I glanced back, my reflection was gone. The mirror showed only the empty hallway behind me. I called in sick to work that day. I couldn't stop staring at the mirror, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. The glass behaved normally throughout the afternoon, reflecting the world exactly as it should. I convinced myself I'd experienced some kind of hallucination, maybe a symptom of stress or lack of sleep. I almost believed it. Then came this morning. I woke at 3 a.m. to a sound like fingernails scratching glass. The noise came from the hallway, rhythmic and persistent. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and crept out of my bedroom. The noise stopped. In the beam of my flashlight, the mirror looked different. The surface seemed to ripple like water, gentle waves distorting the reflection of the hallway. I moved closer, phone extended. That's when I saw it. The date and timestamp in the corner of the mirror's surface, glowing faintly as if etched in light. February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. 2 days from now. And in the glass, my reflection stood in what looked like my living room, but the furniture was wrong, arranged differently. My future self wore clothes I didn't own yet, a dark jacket and gloves, and in my future hands, a knife. I watched, paralyzed with horror as my reflection moved through the scene like footage from a security camera. The movements were smooth, purposeful, practiced. My future self walked towards someone, the camera angle making it impossible to see who. Then the knife rose and fell once, twice, 3 times. The victim collapsed out of frame. My reflection bent down, presumably over the body, and then looked directly at the mirror with that same cold, empty expression from yesterday. My phone slipped from my trembling hands, clattering on the hardwood floor. When I looked back at the mirror, the scene had vanished. Normal reflection, normal hallway. But I knew what I'd seen. I spent the rest of the morning trying to rationalize it. Carbon monoxide poisoning causing hallucinations, a brain tumor pressing on my visual cortex, sleep deprivation inducing waking dreams. But none of those explanations accounted for the specificity of what I'd witnessed, the timestamp, the details, the visceral certainty that I was watching something real. At noon, desperate for proof I wasn't losing my mind, I set up my phone to record the mirror. I positioned it on a tripod in the hallway, aimed directly at the glass, and hit record. Then I waited in my bedroom, door cracked, watching the hallway through the gap. An hour passed. 2. Nothing happened. I was about to give up when I heard it again, that fingernail scratching sound. I burst into the hallway. The mirror was rippling again, and the phone was still recording. I stood beside the camera, watching as the same scene played out in the glass. February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. The same dark jacket, the same gloves, the same knife rising and falling. But this time, I forced myself to watch more carefully. The room and the reflection was definitely my living room, but the couch had been moved against the opposite wall. The coffee table was gone, and there was something else, something that made my blood run cold. On the wall behind my future self, I could see a calendar. The dates were too small to read clearly, but I could make out the month at the top, February 2026. When the scene ended and the mirror returned to normal, I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. I rewound the footage, heart pounding. There it was, all of it, time-stamped, recorded. Undeniable proof that the antique mirror in my hallway was showing me footage from 2 days in the future, footage of me committing murder. I watched the video 17 times, analyzing every frame, searching for some detail that would explain this impossibility. The glass shouldn't be able to record anything, let alone events that haven't happened yet. Mirrors reflect light, they don't capture time. But there it was on my phone, 43 seconds of footage showing my own future self as a killer. The phone's timestamp read February 12th, 2026, 1:34 p.m. The mirror's timestamp read February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. I had exactly 58 hours until I became a murderer. The countdown had begun, and I had no idea how to stop it. The first thing I did was call my sister, Rebecca. She lived 3 hours away in Seattle, far enough that we only saw each other on holidays, close enough that she'd always been my anchor when life got too overwhelming. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. What would I even say? That I'd discovered a time-traveling mirror? That I was going to kill someone in 2 days? She'd think I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. I spent Wednesday afternoon watching the recording over and over, each viewing revealing new details that made everything worse. The way my future self moved with confidence, no hesitation, no trembling hands or panicked breathing. Whoever I became in those 43 seconds wasn't acting out of passion or fear. This was calculated, cold. The David Brennan in that mirror had crossed a line I couldn't imagine crossing, had become someone I didn't recognize despite wearing my face. That's what terrified me most, not the act itself, though that was horrific enough, but the complete absence of emotion in my reflection's eyes. I'd paused the video at the moment my future self looked directly at the mirror, zooming in on my own face. The expression was blank, almost serene, like someone who'd made peace with a difficult decision. I knew my own face better than anyone's. I knew how I looked when I was angry, sad, afraid. This wasn't any of those. This was the face of a stranger. By evening, I'd developed a splitting headache. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the knife rising and falling. I'd never been violent, never even been in a fist fight since grade school. The idea that I could transform into someone capable of murder seemed as impossible as the mirror itself. Around 8 p.m., I made myself return to the hallway. The mirror hung there innocently, reflecting only what was truly there. I stood in front of it, studying my reflection. Same face, same hazel eyes, same slight scar on my left eyebrow from a childhood fall, but I found myself searching for the signs of the person I'd seen in the footage. Was there something dormant in me, some capacity for violence I'd never acknowledged? I remembered a psychology class from college, something about how everyone has a shadow self, aspects of our personality we repress and deny. What if the mirror wasn't showing me a different person? What if it was showing me who I really was beneath the civilized veneer? The thought made me nauseous. I spent that night researching everything I could find about antique mirrors, temporal anomalies, and precognition. Most of it was conspiracy theory nonsense, but I did find a few obscure academic papers about chronovision devices that supposedly allowed people to view past or future events. None of them mentioned anything about mirrors, and all of them had been thoroughly debunked. Still, I copied the information into a notebook, desperate for any framework that might help me understand what was happening. Around 2 a.m., exhausted but unable to sleep, I decided to test something. If the mirror was truly showing the future, then it should respond to changes I made in the present. I went to my bedroom and pulled out the dark jacket I'd seen in the footage. It was an old winter coat I'd bought last year, nothing special. I carried it to the kitchen and stuffed it in the trash, then took the entire bag outside to the dumpster. If I didn't have the jacket, I couldn't wear it in the future. When I returned inside, the mirror was rippling again. I ran to the hallway. The footage was playing, the same scene, but this time I watched more carefully. February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. My reflection wore the dark jacket, the same jacket I'd just thrown away. My heart sank. Either the mirror was showing me a fixed timeline that couldn't be changed, or I was somehow going to retrieve the jacket before Friday night. Neither option offered hope. Thursday morning arrived without sleep. I looked terrible. Dark circles under my eyes, face pale and drawn. The mirror reflected my deterioration with perfect accuracy. I called in sick to work again, claiming food poisoning. My boss sounded skeptical but didn't push. I'd never taken sick days before. I'd always been reliable, punctual, boring David Brennan who showed up and did his job and never caused problems. I spent Thursday trying everything I could think of to change what I'd seen. I rearranged my living room, moving the couch back to its original position, trying to make the space look different from the footage. But as I worked, I realized I was actually arranging the furniture to match what I'd seen in the mirror. My hands seemed to know where everything should go, as if I was following a blueprint burned into my subconscious. That's when I understood. The mirror wasn't just showing me the future, it was programming me for it. Every time I watched the footage, I was learning how to commit the murder, the movements, the positioning, the cold detachment. I was rehearsing for my own horrible performance. I grabbed my phone and deleted the video. Gone, erased. But the damage was done. The images were seared into my memory, playing on repeat every time I blinked. I could see it all clearly without the recording. Deleting the evidence changed nothing. By Thursday evening, I was falling apart. I caught myself practicing the hand movements I'd seen in the footage, the way my future self had gripped the knife. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I looked down and saw my hand mimicking the motion. I screamed and threw myself away from the imaginary weapon, crashing into the wall. My heart raced. Who was I becoming? I needed to talk to someone, anyone, before I completely lost my grip on reality. I called Rebecca again. This time she answered. "David, it's late. Is everything okay?" Her voice was so normal, so grounded in everyday concerns that I almost broke down. "Rebecca, I need to tell you something. You're going to think I'm crazy." "Try me." She sounded worried now. "You don't sound good. What's going on?" I opened my mouth to explain, then froze. What if telling her was part of the pattern? What if my confession to Rebecca was somehow the catalyst that led to the murder? Every action I took could be pulling me closer to that moment instead of away from it. I was trapped in a web of causality I couldn't understand, where every choice might be the wrong one. "David, are you still there?" "I'm scared. I'm scared of who I'm becoming." There was a long pause. "Where are you right now?" "Home. I'm home." "Stay there. I'm coming down. I'll leave in an hour. I'll be there by midnight." "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't. I needed to hear your voice. That's all. I'm fine. Just tired." "You're not fine. I'm coming." I hung up before she could argue. I couldn't let her come here, couldn't risk her being anywhere near me when Friday night arrived, because another terrible thought had occurred to me as we spoke, one that made my stomach turn to ice. In all the footage I'd watched, in all those careful examinations of the scene, I'd never clearly seen the victim's face. What if it was Rebecca? What if my sister drove down to check on me and somehow became the person I was destined to kill? The mirror rippled again in the hallway, but I couldn't bring myself to look. I was 36 hours away from becoming a murderer, and the psychological distance between my current self and my future self was collapsing. I could feel it happening, feel myself slipping toward that cold, empty place where killing someone seemed like a reasonable thing to do. I locked myself in my bedroom and pushed the dresser against the door. If I couldn't get out, maybe I couldn't hurt anyone. But even as I did it, I knew it was futile. The mirror had shown me what would happen. The mirror had never been wrong. Friday morning, February 13th, 2026, 24 hours until the timestamp. I woke up on my bedroom floor, having finally collapsed from exhaustion around 4 a.m. My phone showed 7 missed calls from Rebecca. I didn't call her back. I forced myself to eat something, toast and coffee that tasted like ash in my mouth. Then I did what I'd been avoiding. I went back to the mirror with a notebook and pen, determined to analyze every detail of the crime scene. If I couldn't change what was going to happen, maybe I could at least understand it. Maybe somewhere in those details was a clue about why. The mirror cooperated, showing me the footage 3 times in rapid succession, as if it knew I needed to study it. I wrote down everything I could see. The living room was definitely mine, but modified. Couch against the north wall instead of south. Coffee table removed entirely. The curtains were drawn, something I never did. The lighting was dim, just one lamp in the corner creating long shadows. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., so late night, but I could see through the curtain gap that it was dark outside. That matched. February 14th sunset would be around 6 p.m. This was deep into the night. My future self wore the dark jacket, dark jeans, boots I owned but rarely wore, gloves, thin gloves that allowed for dexterity, the kind someone might wear who was being careful about fingerprints. That detail chilled me more than anything else. It suggested premeditation, planning, awareness of forensics. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated. The knife. I'd been avoiding looking at it directly, but I forced myself to focus. It was large, possibly 8 inches, with a smooth blade that caught the lamplight. I got up from my position in front of the mirror and walked to my kitchen. I opened the knife drawer. There it was, the chef knife I'd received as a Christmas gift 3 years ago, barely used because I mostly ordered takeout. I picked it up, felt its weight in my hand. Substantial, balanced, a quality blade. I should throw it away, should take it outside right now and dump it in someone else's crash miles from here. But my hand wouldn't move. I stood there in my kitchen holding the knife, and I understood with horrible clarity that throwing it away wouldn't matter. Just like the jacket, just like anything else I tried to change. If this knife disappeared, I'd use a different one. The specific weapon wasn't the point. The act was inevitable. I put the knife back in the drawer and returned to the mirror. The victim. This was the detail that haunted me most. In all the footage, I never got a clear view of who I was killing. The angle was wrong, or the lighting was wrong, or the person's face was somehow blurred, like someone had taken an eraser to that part of the image. I could see they were approximately my height, average build, wearing casual clothes. That was all. I studied my reflection's movements in the footage frame by frame in my mind. The approach, the strike, the way I bent down afterwards. And then I noticed something I'd missed before. After my future self looked at the mirror with that dead expression, there was a moment, just a split second, where the reflection's face changed. The emptiness cracked. Something else showed through. Anguish, horror, recognition. My future self wasn't emotionless. The coldness was a mask. Underneath, I was screaming. That realization should have brought some comfort, proof that I hadn't completely transformed into a monster. Instead, it made everything worse, because it meant that when I committed the murder tomorrow night, some part of me would know exactly what I was doing and be unable to stop. I would be conscious, aware, trapped inside my own body as it carried out an act I found abhorrent. I spent the afternoon exploring every possibility I could think of. I called the police non-emergency line, trying to figure out how to report a crime that hadn't happened yet without sounding insane. I hung up before anyone answered. What would I even say? Hello, I'm going to commit a murder tomorrow because my magic mirror told me so. They'd send a psychiatric team, not a prevention unit. I considered leaving town, getting in my car and driving as far as I could before 11:47 p.m. tomorrow. But that felt wrong too, like running wouldn't actually change anything. The mirror had shown me a specific time and place. If I left, would the timeline simply adjust, shifting the murder to wherever I ended up? Or would I somehow find myself compelled to return, drawn back to my living room like a puppet on strings? Around 3 p.m., I tried to smash the mirror. I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox, walked into the hallway, and swung as hard as I could at the center of the glass. The hammer bounced off as if I'd struck a wall of rubber. Not a scratch, not a crack. The impact should have shattered the antique glass into 1,000 pieces, but the mirror remained perfect, unmarred. I tried again, and again, and again. Each time the hammer rebounded with a force that numbed my hands. After the 7th attempt, I dropped the hammer and slid down the wall to sit on the floor, staring at the undamaged glass. The mirror was indestructible, or maybe it would only be destroyed at the right time, after it had served its purpose, after the murder had occurred. That's when the horrible thought struck me. What if I was the victim? What if the mirror was showing me my own murder and I'd gotten the perspective wrong? What if the reflection I was seeing wasn't through the killer's eyes, but through the mirror's eyes, watching as someone who looked exactly like me committed the crime? A twin I'd never known about, a doppelganger, something that had stolen my face and was coming to replace me. I rushed to the mirror, studying the reflection's face in my memory with this new interpretation. Could it be someone else? The features were mine, every detail matched, but identical twins existed. The cold expression could be the mark of an imposter who'd learned to mimic my appearance without understanding the emotions behind it. But no, the scar above my left eyebrow was visible in the footage. The exact way I stood, slightly favoring my right leg from an old injury. These weren't things a doppelganger would know to copy. The person in the mirror was me, not an imposter, not a twin, me. Evening came. I'd stopped eating hours ago. I sat in my living room looking at the space where the murder would happen. The couch was already against the north wall where I'd unconsciously moved it yesterday. All I needed to do now was remove the coffee table and draw the curtains. I was staging the scene for my own crime. Who was I going to kill? The question consumed me. Rebecca? No, I'd scared her away, told her not to come. A random intruder? Someone from my past I'd forgotten? Or someone who didn't exist yet, someone I'd meet in the next 30 hours who would somehow become my victim. I pulled out my phone and looked at my calendar. Tomorrow, February 14th, Valentine's Day. I didn't have any plans. I'd been single for 2 years, hadn't even thought about the date. Was that significant? Would someone show up expecting a date and I'd... No. That didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. The mirror rippled again, but this time the footage was different. Same timestamp, February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. Same scene, same murder, but this time, after my reflection looked at the mirror, the image continued. I watched as my future self stood up, walked toward the hallway, and stopped directly in front of the mirror. Our eyes met across time. My future self's mouth moved, speaking words I couldn't hear. Then the reflection reached out and touched the glass from the other side. The moment our fingers would have connected through the mirror's surface, the image vanished. I was alone in the hallway, staring at my own terrified reflection in the present. My finger was extended, touching the glass. I hadn't consciously reached out. My body had done it automatically, mirroring the movement I'd just witnessed. I yanked my hand back as if the glass had burned me. 12 hours until midnight. 23 hours and 47 minutes until the murder. The countdown was almost over, and I still had no idea who I was going to kill or why. but I was beginning to suspect I knew where to find the answer, the only place I could find it, inside the mirror itself. I didn't sleep Friday night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the knife rising and falling. Every time I looked at my hands, I imagined them covered in blood. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in, the space transforming into a prison that would force me to play out the scene I'd witnessed. At 2 a.m., I finally did what I should have done days ago. I started researching the mirror's history. The elderly woman at the estate sale had mentioned it had been in her family for generations. I'd kept the receipt, tucked away in a drawer with other miscellaneous paperwork. Eleanor Hartwick, the name read, an address in the Victorian district. I found her obituary online, dated March 2024, just a month after I had bought the mirror. The notice mentioned she was survived by a daughter, Patricia Hartwick Green, and listed a phone number for a funeral home. It was a long shot, but I was desperate. I waited until 8 a.m. to call. A recorded message informed the funeral home only accepted calls between 9 and 5. I hung up and paced my apartment like a caged animal. 6 hours until business hours. 15 hours and 47 minutes until the murder. When 9 o'clock finally came, I called again. The woman who answered sounded tired but professional. Riverside Funeral Services. I'm trying to reach Patricia Hartwick Green. Her mother was Eleanor Hartwick. Do you have contact information for the family? I'm sorry, we can't give out personal information, but I can take a message if you'd like. I fought down frustration. Please, this is urgent. I bought something from Eleanor's estate sale, and I need to know about its history. It's extremely important. There was a pause. What did you buy? A mirror, an antique mirror with an ornate silver frame. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, hold, please. 5 minutes passed. 10. I was about to hang up and try something else when a different voice came on the line. Female, older, wary. This is Patricia. You have my mother's mirror? Yes, I bought it 2 years ago at the estate sale. I need to know about it. Please, something's happening and I... Get rid of it. Her voice was sharp, urgent. Throw it away, burn it, bury it. I don't care, but get it out of your house now. My heart hammered. What is it? What does it do? It shows you things that haven't happened yet, things that shouldn't be possible. She started speaking quickly now, words tumbling over each other. My mother started seeing things in it about 3 months before she died. She said it was showing her death, the exact moment. She tried everything to stop it, to change what she saw, but nothing worked. And then on the exact day and time the mirror showed her, she died. Heart attack. They said it was natural causes, but I know better. That mirror killed her. How? I demanded. How did it kill her? The stress, the fear, watching your own death over and over, it destroys you psychologically. By the time the moment arrives, you're so broken down that your body just gives up. And I think the mirror feeds on it somehow. The terror. It gets stronger. The images get clearer. I thought about how the footage had evolved, how the details had sharpened with each viewing. How long has your family had it? Generations. My grandmother's grandmother brought it from Europe in the 1890s. There are stories going back even further. Different families, different countries. The mirror finds people, you understand. It seeks out those who are at vulnerable points in their lives, who are susceptible to its influence, and then it traps them in a loop of their own worst moment. "But why murder?" I asked. "Your mother saw her own death. I'm seeing myself kill someone. Why is it different?" Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Because everyone's worst nightmare is different. What do you fear, David? Really fear?" The answer came immediately, unbidden. "Losing control, becoming someone I'm not." "Then that's what it's showing you. Your personal hell, the thing that would destroy you most completely. And in 14 hours, that vision becomes real." "How do I stop it?" I was pleading now, all pretense of dignity gone. "There has to be a way. Your mother tried to stop her death. Maybe she was going about it wrong. Maybe if I—" "There is no stopping it." Her voice was flat, final. "The mirror doesn't show possibilities, it shows inevitabilities. Fighting only makes it worse, pulls you in deeper. My mother spent her last 3 months trying every ritual, every prayer, every superstition she could find. All it did was make her last days more miserable. The best thing you can do is accept it." "Accept that I'm going to murder someone? I can't. I won't." "Then you'll suffer more. That's the only choice the mirror gives you. Accept your fate and face it with dignity, or fight it and have your psyche ripped apart in the process. Either way, what's been shown will come to pass." I hung up without another word. She was wrong. She had to be wrong. There was always a choice, always a way to change the future. Free will meant something. It had to. I spent the rest of the morning reading everything I could find about temporal paradoxes and predestination. Most of it was theoretical physics that went over my head, but one concept kept appearing: the self-fulfilling prophecy. The idea that trying to prevent a future event actually causes it to happen. Oedipus fleeing the prophecy of killing his father only to encounter and kill him on the road. The tragedy that arises from trying to escape tragedy. What if every action I'd taken to prevent the murder was actually creating the circumstances for it? Moving the furniture, isolating myself, driving Rebecca away, working myself into a psychological state where violence seemed inevitable. Was I fulfilling the prophecy by trying to fight it? At noon, I made a decision. I would do nothing, absolutely nothing. I would go about my day as normally as possible, watch TV, make lunch, ignore the mirror. If the prophecy required my participation to come true, then I would refuse to participate. I would be so aggressively normal that the universe would have no choice but to let the timeline change. I managed to maintain this facade for 3 hours. Then, Rebecca showed up. I heard her knock at 2 p.m., her familiar pattern of 3 quick raps. For a moment, I considered not answering, pretending I wasn't home. But I couldn't do that to her. She'd driven 3 hours to check on me. The least I could do was reassure her I was fine. I opened the door. Rebecca stood in the hallway, concern etched into every line of her face. "You look terrible." "I'm fine." The lie tasted bitter. "You didn't need to come." "You scared me on the phone. You sounded—" She trailed off, pushing past me into the apartment. "What's going on? And don't say nothing. I know you better than that." I closed the door and turned to find her staring at the mirror in the hallway. "Is that new?" "No, I've had it for 2 years." "It's beautiful." She moved closer to it, reaching out to touch the frame. "Where did you get it?" "Don't touch it." The words came out harsher than I intended. "Okay, sorry. What's wrong with it?" "Everything. I wanted to scream. It's showing me I'm going to kill someone in 9 hours and 47 minutes, and I think that someone might be you. But the words wouldn't come. How could I explain something I barely understood myself? It's just old, I said instead. Fragile. I'm worried about damaging it. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. Instead, she walked into the living room and sat on the couch that was positioned exactly where it needed to be for the murder. Talk to me, please. What's really going on? I sat across from her, maintaining distance. I've been having nightmares, bad ones. They feel so real that I can't tell what's actually happened and what I've dreamed. About what? Hurting someone. The admission felt like pulling broken glass from a wound. In the dreams, I hurt someone, and I can't stop myself. It feels inevitable. Rebecca leaned forward. David, dreams are just dreams. They don't mean anything. You're one of the gentlest people I know. You wouldn't hurt anyone. Maybe I've been hiding it. Maybe there's a part of me that you've never seen. Or maybe you're exhausted and stressed and having intrusive thoughts that feel worse than they are. She stood up and moved towards me. Come here. I backed away. Don't. You're my brother. Let me help you. I can't. I'm almost at the hallway now, almost at the mirror. You need to leave. Please, Rebecca, go home. Forget you came here. I'm not leaving you like this. Either you talk to me properly or I'm taking you to the emergency room. Those are your options. 9 hours and 33 minutes until the timestamp. Rebecca wasn't leaving, and with horrible certainty I realized why the victim's face had always been blurred in the footage. Because it was Rebecca. It had always been Rebecca. She'd come to help me, and I was going to kill her for it. The mirror rippled behind me. I could feel it without looking, could sense the glass preparing to show me the full truth. Rebecca noticed my expression change and turned to look at the mirror herself. David, what's happening? The mirror is... I grabbed her arm, pulled her away. Don't look at it. Please, whatever you do, don't look. But it was too late. The footage was playing, larger and clearer than it had ever been, and Rebecca was watching herself die. Rebecca screamed, not a scream of fear, but of denial, a primal rejection of what she was seeing. In the mirror, the scene played out with perfect clarity now. February 14th, 2026, 11:47 p.m. Me, in the dark jacket, the knife, and Rebecca, my sister, my only family, standing exactly where she stood now in the living room. The blade falling, once, twice, 3 times, her body collapsing, me looking at the mirror with that cracked expression of horror that I finally understood was self-awareness trapped in an inevitable act. She stumbled backward, hand over her mouth. That's not real. That can't be real. I tried to warn you. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. I tried to keep you away. How long have you known? She was shaking, eyes darting between me and the mirror. How long have you been planning this? I'm not planning it. I don't want it. The mirror just shows what's going to happen, and I can't... You're insane. She was moving toward the door now, and I realized with crushing despair that her fear was the missing piece. This was the moment, not 11:47 p.m., now. The timestamp had been wrong, or I'd misread it, or time itself was more fluid than I'd understood. But this was the moment when everything would come apart. Please listen to me. I moved to block the door, then realized that was exactly wrong, that trapping her would make everything worse. I stepped aside. Go! Leave now! Drive as far away as you can. She grabbed her purse from the couch, her hands fumbling with the strap. "I'm calling the police." "Good, do that. Tell them everything. Maybe they can stop this." But she wasn't listening anymore. She was running for the door, yanking it open. I watched her go, heard her footsteps pounding down the apartment building stairs. The door swung shut behind her with a soft click. I stood alone in my living room, heart hammering, waiting for the compulsion to follow her, to grab the knife and chase her down. The compulsion that would transform me into the monster the mirror had shown. It didn't come. Minutes passed. 5, 10. I remained standing in the same spot, fully in control of my own body. The murderous impulse I'd feared, the force that would override my free will and make me act out the vision, was absent. I walked to the kitchen drawer and looked at the knife drawer. I felt no urge to open it. The mirror in the hallway rippled again. I walked toward it, cautious but curious. The footage appeared, but it was different now. Static and distortion corrupted the image. The timestamp flickered and jumped. 11:47 p.m., then 2:14 p.m., then nonsense numbers. The scene itself broke apart and reformed, showing fragments, me with the knife, Rebecca running, the living room empty, the mirror cracking. None of it was coherent anymore. "You're broken," I whispered to the glass. "I changed it. I actually changed it." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't quite right. I hadn't changed anything. Rebecca showing up at 2 p.m. instead of 11:47 p.m. had changed things. Her seeing the mirror, being warned, fleeing before the fated moment, those were the variables the mirror hadn't accounted for. Or maybe it had, and this chaos was always the intended outcome. My phone rang. "Rebecca." I answered immediately. "Are you okay?" we both said simultaneously. "I'm still me. I didn't hurt you. You got away." "I'm in my car. I'm driving, but I don't know where I'm going. I just needed to move." Her voice was steadier now, the initial panic fading into something else. Confusion. "David, what was that? What did we just see?" "I don't fully understand it, but I think it was showing us one possible future, not an inevitable one. Or maybe it shows the inevitable future, and we just managed to find the crack in the inevitability." "That's not comforting." "No," I agreed. "It's not." "What are you going to do?" I looked at the mirror, still flickering and distorting, showing fragments of a future that was no longer coherent. "I'm going to wait. The timestamp was 11:47 tonight. Maybe it's not over yet." "You should leave, pack a bag and go somewhere else, anywhere else." I learned if the mirror taught me anything, it's that running doesn't work. Whatever's supposed to happen will happen. I just have to be ready for it. We talked for a few more minutes, making sure the other was truly okay, before she hung up to focus on driving. I sat down in my living room, exactly where I'd been when the vision started, and waited for evening to come. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. I kept checking the mirror, but the images never fully stabilized. Fragments of the vision appeared and disappeared. Sometimes I saw myself with the knife. Sometimes the living room was empty. Sometimes the mirror showed only static, like a television stuck between channels. At 6 p.m., I made dinner. Pasta. Simple. Normal. The act of cooking grounded me, reminded me I was still human, still capable of ordinary actions. I sat at my kitchen table and ate mechanistically, tasting nothing. The chef's knife sat in the drawer, untouched. I'd already checked 3 times to make sure it was still there, that I hadn't sleepwalked and hidden it somewhere. It remained exactly where it should be. 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. The apartment grew dark. I turned on lights, refusing to let shadows dominate the space. The mirror continued its chaotic display, never settling on a single version of the future. At 10 p.m., someone knocked on the door. My blood turned to ice. This was it, the moment. Someone was here, someone I would somehow be compelled to kill despite my resistance. I stood slowly and walked to the door, every step feeling like moving through concrete. I looked through the peepholes. A stranger stood in the hallway. Male, average height, wearing a delivery uniform and holding a clipboard. I didn't recognize him, but the mirror had never shown me the victim's face clearly. Could this be him? I opened the door, keeping the chain lock engaged. Yes? David Brennan? He consulted his clipboard. Yes. I have a delivery for you. Needs a signature. I didn't order anything. He shrugged. Says here it's from an estate sale. Final items from Eleanor Hartwick estate. My heart stopped. What items? Just says mirror accessories and documentation. Sign here. I signed with shaking hands. He passed me a small box through the gap in the door, tipped his hat, and left. I closed the door and carried the box to the coffee table. 10:23 p.m., 1 hour and 24 minutes until the timestamp. Inside the box were several items, old photographs of the mirror in different settings, different homes, different countries, a journal, leather-bound and ancient with entries in multiple languages, and a letter sealed in an envelope addressed to the current observer. I opened the letter with trembling hands. The handwriting was old-fashioned, careful cursive. To whom it concern, if you are reading this, you have acquired the Hartwick mirror and witnessed its properties. I am writing this in 1923, having lived with the mirror for 40 years. I will die tomorrow, and I am writing this as both warning and explanation. The mirror does not predict the future. It creates it. Every vision it shows is a suggestion, a template that will manifest if the observer believes it must. The mirror feeds on fear and inevitability. It shows you the thing you most fear becoming, and in showing you, it programs you to become it. But here is the secret. The mirror can only control what you believe is inevitable. The moment you truly accept that the future is not fixed, that you have genuine choice, the mirror's power breaks. The visions fracture and fade. I learned this too late. I've spent 40 years believing the mirror's visions were absolute truth. I have watched it show me 100 different deaths, and in fearing them, I have lived a half-life, paralyzed by the knowledge of my approaching end. But I realize now, at the end of everything, that I could have broken free at any time simply by refusing to believe. Do not make my mistake. Do not give the mirror your certainty. Hold on to doubt. Hold on to possibility, and you may yet escape the future it shows you. With hope for your deliverance, Margaret Eleanor Hartwick. I read the letter 3 times, the words sinking in slowly. The mirror created futures by convincing people they were inevitable. But if I rejected that inevitability, rejected the certainty of the vision, the mirror in the hallway had gone still. No rippling, no flickering, just plain glass reflecting the empty hallway. I stood and walked toward it, the letter still in my hand. For the first time since this nightmare began, I looked at my reflection without fear. "I don't believe you," I said to the mirror. "You showed me one possible future, one path I could take, but it's not the only path. It never was." The glass remained unchanged, silent, waiting. My phone read 11:47 p.m. I stood in front of the mirror, fully conscious, fully in control, and I didn't move. No compulsion seized me. No external force made me walk to the kitchen for the knife. I simply stood there, breathing, existing, proving that this moment could pass without tragedy. 11:48. The mirror began to crack, not from any external impact, but from within. Fine lines spiderwebbing across the surface like ice breaking up in spring. The fractures spread until the entire antique glass was a mosaic of broken pieces, still held together by the frame, but completely shattered. In the fragments, I saw 1,000 different reflections, 1,000 different versions of myself, each one showing a different choice, a different future. The killer, the victim, the coward, the hero, the brother, the stranger, all of them possible, none of them inevitable. The last piece fell away, leaving only empty frame. The mirror was gone. Whatever power it had held, whatever curse it had carried across generations, had finally broken. Not because I had destroyed it, but because I had refused to believe in the future it showed me. I called Rebecca. "It's midnight. I'm okay. It's over." "You're sure?" I looked at the empty frame on my wall, at the broken glass scattered on the floor. "I'm sure. The mirror is gone. The future isn't fixed. We're free." "What are you going to do now?" I thought about it. Live. Make different choices. Be someone the mirror never showed me I could be. We talked for an hour, both of us decompressing from the horror of the last 3 days. When we finally hung up, I started cleaning up the broken glass, careful not to cut myself. Tomorrow I would take down the frame and burn it, but tonight I just needed to sit in my living room and feel grateful to be alive, to be unchanged, to have escaped the future that had been laid out for me. The mirror had shown me I could be a killer, but in showing me, it had also shown me I could choose not to be. And that choice, that one moment of refusal at 11:47 p.m. on February 14th, 2026, had made all the difference. I never saw another vision. The mirror remained dead, just broken glass and tarnished silver. Whatever temporal trap it had contained was finally closed. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered about all those other reflections I'd seen in that final moment. All those other versions of myself living out different paths. I hoped they made the right choices too. The end.